Okay, we continue on our virtues. And today we're going to talk about building a strong network and not burning bridges. And interestingly enough, this is maybe one of the easiest, most straightforward virtues, I think. Yet it's something I see people fail in consistently. And oftentimes, if I'm being completely transparent, I often see that people fail in this due to hubris. Their own ego gets in their way. So let me sort of try to break this down. By network, what we mean here is your connection to people. So build a network, and by strong, what we mean is a network that has people that matter. We call these PTMs at Merle, not VIP, just because the word vary is kind of a silly word in my mind. So people that matter, but people that matter will vary from person to person. There is sort of no universal, this person matters to everyone. Or if there is, I think that there's a lot of people that don't fall into that category. And so the goal with building a strong network is to make sure that you're connected with people that you find mutual value in. They're valuable to you, you're valuable to them, and you can kind of grow up together. On top of that, they can be more senior than you, they can be more junior than you, or they can be your peers. There's no rule, I think, that they need to be of any particular type. And in fact, I would argue that if you try to just interface with people that are of one particular type of those three, someone that is more senior than you, someone that is your peer, or someone that is more junior than you, and you just focus on one group, I think you're probably doing yourself a disservice. I think it's good to explore all three of those groups for different reasons. And the idea of a strong network is not that you have people in powerful positions that are going to do incredible things for you and it's just a free ride. No, this is not it at all. It's more just that your powerful network will help you get opportunities that might otherwise be difficult for you to get on your own. But once they provide the help to get the opportunity, what happens with that opportunity is up to you. It's entirely in your hands. So this isn't you get everything taken care of because somebody that's very important is your father or mother or brother or sister or uncle or something like this. And these types of things will happen. There are certain people that are gifted with really good families that are PTMs that can open up a lot of doors. But the truth is that is a blessing and it's a curse. it's a blessing in that they'll probably have an easier time getting their foot in the door compared to other people that don't have those connections. It's a curse, though, or it can be a curse, because those people then may not understand how to foster new relationships because they maybe haven't needed to do this. And so they may become inadequate in creating new bridges with people. Whereas people that are not gifted with these outstanding relationships and network, they likely are going to get more experience and likely are going to be stronger in building those connections. And no matter what I think anyone may have told you, I think there's a lot of bad advice out there on this idea that you should be able to achieve everything purely based off of your own merit, and you shouldn't need anyone to get anywhere. This is a very sort of idealistic view of the world, and I think it's pretty naive in that I truly believe that no person is an island. And I think there was an interview with Arnold Schwarzenegger at one point, and he was talking about the help that he's received in getting all the places that he's been able to get. And in this interview, I think they started out the conversation saying, well, you know, Arnold, you're the epitome of a self-made man. And so tell us about what it's like to basically do all this on your own. You know, be an immigrant from Austria, I think, and come to the United States and, you know, first start out as a bodybuilder and then succeed there and then get into movies and then get into real estate and somehow along the way end up being the governor of California and all of this stuff, right? Just like, wow, you're just incredible. You're an anomaly. Tell us how you did it so everyone can follow. And he proceeds to say that there's this idea that he's a self-made man, and it couldn't be further from the truth, that he's had help all along the way, the entire time. And he calls out to the fact that without all the enormous help that he was given, there's no way he would be where he is. And that certainly he had to put in a huge amount of work. He had to show up every day, small footsteps, keep persevering through all this adversity. Absolutely, that was all him. But those people that were in his life, those were the people that helped get doors open. Those were the people that, when things went seriously south, he was able to call on those people and they were able to help him get out of really tight spots. And it's my experience that this is one of the most important reasons for you to have a strong network, is life will throw various curveballs at you at really strange times that are likely not predictable in any way, shape, or form. And if you don't have a strong network that you can lean on when those things happen, you might be finished. You might actually be stuck. And so the network is there as your safety net. The network is there to open doors for you. And the truth is that if you aren't an amazing person, if you aren't outstanding, if you don't have integrity, I don't think that you're going to have a very easy time building a strong network. My experience has been that if you aren't amazing in all these different ways, if you aren't like a super good person, if you don't follow through and get things done and provide evidence that you're going to succeed in the things that you signed up for consistently, and all of these other incredible things that are on this virtues list, if you don't do those, I think that you're not going to be able to build a strong network. That people, especially PTMs, people that matter, won't really have anything to do with you. They will see that you're sort of a fraud, that you're in it for a quick buck, that you're not responsible, you're not reliable, you don't show up, all these things, and they're not going to support you. But if you are those things, if you are someone that has good character, if you are doing things for the right reasons, you deeply care about the problems that you're working on, the space that you're in, you're able to put in the work and be kind and do the right thing even when the world is sort of giving you a bunch of lemons or being wildly unfair, those people, I think, will see this and they will become magnetized by your perseverance and your ability to not sweat the small stuff, to take the high ground. And so this idea that you could somehow build a network, especially a strong network, simply by talking to people, I mean, not the kind of people that I'm talking about, and not the kind of people that I think are in my network, that I am very particular about building bridges with really incredible people. And oftentimes what I deem as incredible is mostly has to do with people that deeply care about things. And it's usually pretty easy to understand if someone deeply cares, is they tend to know an inordinate amount of things about something that if you didn't deeply care, there's really no way that you would know these things. And so an example of that is maybe Tim Matson. Tim Matson knows so many things about so many things. And I think it's just because he cares. He just is a deeply curious person, and he wants to make the world a better place. And I think it just becomes obvious when you meet someone like that, that they just are on a quest for themselves and for the world, but they're not doing it for a paycheck. They're not doing it for status. They're not doing it so that they can have their lights, their name in headlines or their name in lights. They're doing it because they genuinely care. And oftentimes a good way to determine this is if they work hard on things that no one else would potentially be aware of. That they're doing the right thing even when the world is not watching. I will actually look for these types of signals. And if I see these are like usually really good indicators that this is a person that I'm probably going to jive with very well. So that's the first piece on the building a strong network. And it is wildly important, in my opinion. And it doesn't have to be a forced thing. It can be a very natural thing. So, for example, one of the people that I really leaned into and started working with for my doctorate was Professor Morris Herlihy, who was outside member of my PhD dissertation, and he's been a mentor of mine for maybe 20 years. And it's, I've made comments about how I kind of think of him as my my non-biological father. And I really kind of see him that way, that he's done tremendous things for me. And we have a very, I think, symbiotic kind of relationship. Is I'm constantly looking for excuses and ways to work with him. And I think he's constantly supportive of me and kind of like the crazy things that I do. And I think that he knows that I'm very much the real deal, in the sense that I really care. And I think that's part of the reason, at the time when he was willing to be on my dissertation committee, I didn't quite understand why he would work with someone like me, because I was nobody, right? I mean, I didn't have any publications. I was just some lowly PhD student. And this guy's Morris Hurley, right? Like, he invented the field of transactional memory. He invented linearizability. He's won the Dijkstra Award like 3 times or something. His advisor from MIT is Barbara Liskov, who just won the Turing Award. I mean, it's like, this guy's on another planet, and I'm just this noob, just this clueless grad student. But I think now, after working with them long enough, I think what he saw in me was that I really care. That I really care about these things. And this is why I was interested in transactional memory. This is why I was interested in working with him, is I wanted to know stuff. I wanted to work with people that could make me better. And keep in mind, when I first met Morris, I was terrified out of my mind. I was fumbling around all these words, didn't know what to say. It was just super awkward. Grad student, and I apologized for interrupting him. I said his name wrong. I think I called him Hurley. It's not Hurley. It's Hurley. Just as an FYI, if you run into him in the street, it's Hurley. Or at least I think that it is. Maybe after 20 years I know. But the point is that he was super gracious, and we started working together. And since then, we've been, sort of attached at the hip, that every chance I get, I involve him on things. I don't know how many papers or things we've been involved in, but there's been several. We've jointly advised PhD students. When I was running research centers, when I was at Intel, he was on like the board of advisors for those. When I was doing stuff at Machine Zone, we brought him in to help us with the theoretical underpinnings of the concurrent systems we were building. He's an outside advisor and a supporter for Murley. Like, just the list goes on and on. And this goes into that part of not burning bridges. And this is the part where I think hubris comes in. And it's very strange to me. And I have seen this over and over. I don't know how many times I've seen this. And it's very strange. Almost every time it's just a choice. And somehow it feels like people decide that somehow their honor is at stake or something, and they take something that's happened, some kind of event, and then they decide that they didn't like how this went down. They didn't like how someone treated them. They felt slighted. And again, it goes back to this whole emotion thing. Where is this emotion thing? Don't let your emotions control you. Don't do it. Just don't do it. It can send things really sideways. And so I see this is that people will get into, they built this incredible network. They're connected with people that are just phenomenal. And then there's some hiccup in the relationship, not even anything major. It's like somebody got slighted in a meeting, or somebody's ideas were ignored, or I don't know, it's just small stuff. It's really this whole little things. Um, and then the person decides, no, 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 this is going to be my cross to bear, and I'm going to die on this hill. And so they do. They decide this is going to be the hill I die on, and I'm not going to stand for it. I'm going to demand an apology, or I'm demand they fix it. And at that point, I think that the person has sort of already lost. So even if things turn out well for that person, they're able to get all the stuff that they wanted, and even if they're in the right, right? Because this isn't about being right or wrong. This is about being wise. This is about understanding that the network that you have, that you spent so much time building, so many hours, years, building up trust and integrity, that it would be crazy, at least in my mind, to just burn that to the ground for no reason. Now, admittedly, there may be moments where things go sideways in a very real way, and there are people in your inner circle that's part of your network, what have you, and they have done something bad, unforgivably bad. We won't even get into what those things might be, but it happens. There was actually a colleague of mine that did something that I won't even mention on this channel, but so much that this person needed to be removed from my network, and the person is. But it wasn't emotional. And I really had to think about it deeply, and I did lots of verification to make sure, like, did this really happen? Is this really... Because it was so uncharacteristic, at least based on what I thought I knew. But it turned out that the things that I was told happened did actually happen, and it's something that was not acceptable. So there are times where you may need to end those relationships because really major things happen. And I'm not suggesting that you don't on those. What I am suggesting is that when you have small stuff, when you have a minor disagreement, when someone slights you just a little bit, or doesn't maybe treat you perfectly, most of the time, I find that you just take the high road. You just take the high road. That you look at the situation and say, yep, that wasn't super great. I didn't totally love the way that went down. But what matters here is the bigger picture, and I'm not going to let this minor thing distract me from that bigger picture, and so I'm over it. And then, you kind of follow like these other things. You don't hold grudges. You don't get distracted by the little things. You come to terms with it. You understand what it was that was bothering you. You may even talk to one of your colleagues and say, this happened. I just want to get it off my chest, and I didn't like it. I just needed to be able to tell somebody, and I feel better now, and I'm ready to move on. And I think 9 times out of 10, 999 times out of 1,000, that's the right thing to do. There are those one cases where the thing that happened is actually bigger than taking the high road, like in the one case I was mentioning where I had to actually remove someone. But those cases are super rare. Super, super rare. Now, the part that I think is really interesting is, at least in my field, computer science, computer engineering, technology, machine learning, whatever, the community at the top is actually really small. It's a very small community of people that have kind of spent their life becoming amazing. And we all sort of know each other. So if you burn a bridge with one of these thought leaders, one of these people that's like Morris Herlihy, and you do it over something that's a molehill. You know, Morris didn't call you doctor, uh, and so you decided like, oh, I'm so offended. You know, I have a PhD and I should always be. I mean, like I've literally heard people lose their mind over something this silly. Like, why? Why does this matter so much? Like, focus on the big stuff. But I've seen this, and then the problem is that when you burn that bridge with someone that is that outstanding, and that person is usually outstanding for a very good reason in that they don't generally burn bridges. They're there because they've had sort of an impeccable career and they've lasted the test of time. They haven't had these egregious errors like many other people have had over decades of time, and that is a very hard thing to do. It's very hard to be in the public eye or to be scrutinized by so many people for so long, and they're not able to dig up that much dirt, if any dirt on you. And many of the people that are sort of at the top, not all of them, definitely not all of them. There's some that have been doing some nefarious things, and we're finding out about those people. But I think a lot of them actually are really buttoned up, that they've gone out of their way to take the high ground, and they've sort of earned their place in the world with huge amount of effort, just unimaginable tolerance for all kinds of things that normal people might not ever understand. And so then, if you burn a bridge with one of these people, especially someone that's like really kind of doing you a favor by letting you be part of their network, this could reflect on you in such a magnificent way. And magnificent in this case is terrible. Magnificently horrible. This could close off an entire world for you. And I've seen this. I've seen this in real life where there have been really prominent people involved in something. And again, just probably like a minor misunderstanding. But then this junior person decides that they're gonna die on this molehill, and then the senior people somehow they decide that they're gonna die on the molehill too, because you get to that point, you've had to deal with so much crap. Sometimes they get a little bit of hubris too. I mean, it happens. And so in this particular case, sort of no one was really bending. And I think everybody might have been at fault to a certain degree. But what really happened is that the junior person is really making their life unnecessarily complex. And for why? Right? It was something as simple as like they forgot to buy the milk on the way home. I mean, that wasn't exactly it, but it's along those lines where it's just like, hey, let that slide. You're the new person in the building. You don't just like double down on this and risk your whole career over something this silly. Like, what? Why? Why would you do that? And perhaps one of the craziest parts about this is the people that I've seen it done with. These are people that are pretty far along in their life. These are all basically all PhDs that are, some of them, former professors, very established in their career, working at places like Intel or Microsoft or Google, just really sort of high bar places, or professors at places like MIT or Caltech or what have you. And you wouldn't expect, or at least I wouldn't expect, that they would allow themselves to get caught up in such minutia. But it happens. And so my advice on this one is, again, it's just very simple. It's understand that a strong network is likely only going to help you in life. And life is going to, my experience and all the people that I know who have done amazing things, life has thrown all of us curveballs. And so having a strong network that can help you navigate the choppy waters when the waters get choppy is just, it can be the difference between you surviving and you sinking. And being prepared for that ahead of time, I think, is critical. So whoever these people are that would make you have a stronger network, I recommend you start building bridges with them. And it can feel awkward at first, right? Like the first time I reached out and talked to Morris Herlihy, I don't know who he is. I mean, I know who he is, but I've never spoken to him before, and I don't even know how to introduce myself. I think I attached my resume or something. But the truth is, I think that people that are really amazing and really care about stuff, they will see when people reach out. For example, one of our viewers reached out to us, Ahmad, and he shared later on that he was a little bit nervous to reach out to us and share some of the things he shared. And I told him I'm so grateful that he did. Like, it really stood out that he really cares about machine programming. He's really interested in like the 3 pillars. And so now we're building bridges with Ahmad. Like, I love that. I think I've got a pretty good sense for people that deeply care. Speaking of which, we got a comment last night from one of our viewers on going over how we could potentially look at one of the solutions using this thing called return value optimization, RVO, as well as, I think it's R value references, or move semantics, which coincidentally I've done some research in, just a small amount, but I actually think I have a paper that we published on this concept for transactional memory. And so the reason why I'm sharing this is I saw his comment, and I think he's absolutely right, he or she, and I responded back saying, yeah, we should actually talk about this, and I plan to actually talk about it. But the higher order point here is this might have been a little nervous. It might have been a little bit of anxiety for this person to leave a message and give a guidance to me on something that maybe I missed. But I think when you find people that really care, they oftentimes just like want to know. In fact, there was another viewer that made a comment about how I made a mistake on suggesting that C++ was inspired by C and Smalltalk, and instead it seems like it's inspired by C and Simula. And I looked into it, and I think that he's right. And I mentioned this in subsequent podcasts, thanking him for this, and so thank you again for that. And I'm better now. Like, I want to know stuff. I want to know when I'm making mistakes, because I'm principally driven to learn. This is like one of the most exciting things for me. And so the faster I can figure out the things I'm getting wrong, the faster I will fix those things, and I will grow. So yeah, share, please. And I think that you'll often find similar things for people that deeply care. That when you share things like you're building an indie game and they built an indie game, or you're interested in research that they're interested in, or a flurry of other things, I think those are great things to reach out and contact those people with. The other thing, too, is also keep in mind that for people that might be really accomplished, like Morris Herlihy, just because you reach out to them doesn't necessarily mean that they will see it right away. That oftentimes these people can be super, super busy, and it's important to foster goodwill, and that don't necessarily make the assumption, again, this is the whole don't burn bridges, don't make the assumption that just because you don't hear back from them immediately that they're somehow ignoring you. There's actually been cases where, yeah, there are really large tech companies on the order of like these $1 trillion market cap companies that have reached out to me over the last month or so, and I haven't gotten back to all of them because I've just been busy with this and other things. But I do plan to get back to them. I just have been busy with GTT and other things. And the good news is many of these people I've worked with before, and I think that they're going to foster goodwill. At least that's my hope. And so far, I haven't received hate mail, right? So there's this understanding, is that when you are reaching out and trying to build bridges with these folks, being graceful and understanding that they may be far busier than you might be, or than you might imagine. And it's not to say that they're necessarily like more important than you. It just means that they might be busier. They have like more stuff going on. And that may limit their ability to get back to you. So you can use some of these virtues in concert with each other to really help you achieve, I think, wonderful things. And so my takeaway, I guess, is continuing to work to build a strong network, to really understand who the people are that you'd really like to have in your network, and what value they bring, what value you bring, because usually I find it really should be bi-directional. If there isn't value for both parties, I think that it could be unlikely for this to work. And it doesn't need to be equal value, but having value for both sides, I think, can be important. And it could be very much that the other side is determining what that value is in ways that maybe you haven't even contemplated. But on top of that, then when you do build this network, when you do actually have folks like Morris Herlihy in your inner circle that you've spent decades or countless hours building, please, please make every effort to not burn those bridges. That it takes a lifetime of behaving with integrity and building trust to build a strong connection with someone, and it only takes a moment of momentary lapse of reason, momentary point of having emotional overload to bring this all crumbling down. And so if you find yourself in that state where you're feeling a little anxious and things aren't necessarily going your way, before you lash out, I strongly recommend you try to follow the words of Marcus Aurelius and feel those emotions. Give yourself a moment to contemplate them and allow them to pass through you, but don't let those drive your reactions. Try to only allow your rational mind to drive those reactions, so you don't accidentally do something that you can never undo. Because sometimes in the heat of the moment, all it takes is one word, and these things can come crumbling down. And oftentimes, like we've been discussing, I think that there are things that don't need to be said. You can just take the high ground. And you can swallow your pride and say, yeah, life's a little unfair. I didn't get treated the best that I would have liked, but, not the first time. Definitely not going to be the last.